Hello and welcome to the Woo Woo Gypsy Podcast. I'm Taylor, your host. This week we will be speaking on The Art of Making Memories by Mike Viking, still unclear. I should have just made this whole month about him because I have three or four of his books that I've read this month. They're very fun books to read in the fall/winter time. So if you're looking for a good read right now, I recommend them. All right, so let's get into it. The Art of Making Memories. When you're trying to create a special memory that you want to travel back to, what comes to mind? So I don't know about you guys, but I forget everything. After having my daughter, I can't remember anything. So I gotta start specifically trying to remember things. So when you're trying to have something, and you want to be able to travel back to that moment, what comes to mind? Is there a certain smell or ambiance, a location that you want to create this magic moment at? Is there a perfect song playing in the background? Well, guess what? There are keys to creating a moment and making it last in your memory, which is good news for me because I never have them. An example, when you light that cinnamon candle or visit that waterfall or hear that Dirty Head song playing, it takes you back to that special moment in time. If you used any of those in, a specific memory that you wanted to remember. Mike hits on these, saying that there are 8 ingredients for creating happy memories. The first one, above all, pay attention. Put your phone down. Soak it all in. Just soak everything in around you. I said this in one of my other podcast episodes, but people, when you go to a concert now, everybody's got their fucking phones out recording the whole goddamn thing. I understand recording like a little snippet just so you can have that little piece to come back to, but recording the whole goddamn thing and not even appreciating what's happening in the moment really irritates me, especially because I am 5 foot tall. Everybody's fucking phones are in my way. I can already not be able to see over people usually. So when people add on that extra length of their arm in their phones, there's even more fucking bullshit that I have to try to look through. So, yeah, sorry for that rant. I ranted on it in the last one, too, when I brought that up. So pay attention. Put your fucking phones down, people. All right. Make it multisensory. What are you smelling? What are you touching? What are you hearing? What are you tasting? For me, I think of... Again, there was this concert venue called Peabody's in Cleveland that I absolutely loved. And it was a whole ass fucking atmosphere. And it was just very grungy and gross and punk. And I loved it. And I think the reason that it remains in my memory so vividly is because it was multisensory. What was I smelling? Beer, sweat, BO. I mean, let's be real, but I mean, that was a little bit here and there. But mostly beer. When am I touching like other people's kind of like bumping into me, or I was smoking a cigarette, or touching my beer can. What was I hearing? The bands, obviously. Tasting a cigarette or the beer that I was drinking. And I was also feeling the sticky floor where unknown substances were all over the place. All right, another thing to do to create a happy memory. Try something new. He speaks on the power of firsts. So find something that you haven't done and do it, especially if it's something you've wanted to do, because there are things that I've wanted to go do, and then, with progress the way that it is, places go out of business, places get knocked down, shit changes. So if you want to do something, go fucking do it. Create meaningful moments. Go out of your way to make something something mundane meaningful. And it's okay. Be eccentric, be yourself, make it yours. Do something that gets your blood pumping. Go mosh in a mosh pit. Ride your bike in, I don't know about y'all, but there's a trail that goes from, oh my God, I don't even know. It goes from like one section to another section. It's like miles long, miles and miles, and you can like camp on it, and you ride your bike through here. Very cool. Anyways, something like that. Go hiking, go backpacking. Write the memories down. If it's something you really want to solidify and remember, write them down or keep like a token, make a journal, make a scrapbook, photo album, whatever you have to like record that moment in time forever. Okay, maybe not a fucking phone, but even just, a cassette player if you want to record people's voices. I have a cassette player that I got from the thrift store, and get some blank tapes and just record conversations. Just set it down at a party and record conversations. Like, how fucking fun would that be? Like, I want to do that now, actually. I need to make a note to myself because I will forget that. But I want to do that now. Get one of those big, obnoxious video cameras that we all used in the 80s and the 90s, or a digital camera, and just record a small moment, and don't do the whole thing. Or if you're gonna do that, set the camera up somewhere. Try to make sure that whatever it is in the shot, but don't put too much thought into that part of it, Share the memories as stories. It's kind of a joke in my house. We say all the time, like, do you remember when blah, blah, blah happened? And it's kind of become like an obnoxious thing that I do. Like, something will happen, and then probably like 10 or 15 minutes later, I'll be like, hey, do you remember the time when the dog had an accident and then your sister played in it, got it all over? Fun times, right? Yeah, that was gross. That's gonna stay in my mind forever. It was very gross. And lastly, don't just capture the peak of a journey. Capture the entire journey. On Instagram, people always show you the peak, but they don't show the journey to get there. And if they do, I feel like they fucking, not sugarcoat it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But even then, it's like, okay, that doesn't seem like you started from there and got to there. I feel like there was still a huge chunk missing. Like, there's no way. Anyway, once a year, go somewhere you've never been before. That is a fun memory. Try new foods. That can lock in a fun new memory. I wasn't going to add this part in here because I wasn't quite sure on, like, making a memory, if this really went with that theme, but it's going to make you memorable. So he said, if you're giving a speech, take a pineapple on stage with you, or something else of that matter. It doesn't have to be a pineapple. You just take something random and carry it up on stage with you, because it's going to make you a conversation piece, and it's going to make you memorable. So if there's something, if you are creating a product or something, maybe just like carry up an ingredient of that product. If you're making like a beauty product, carry like a giant tub of beeswax. And don't address it. Just carry it up there. Create unique memory triggers. He uses an example of smelling seaweed to help lock in a certain memory that he was having of spearfishing. He was having a spearfishing trip, and he wanted to make sure, that he locked in that memory. So he's like, oh, I'm going to grab some seaweed and smell it. Genius. This one, every happy memory deserves a soundtrack. So there was actually somebody in my life who used to do that. I've heard that from me. They would, like, certain albums would come out by certain artists at XYZ time, and that specific album would when he listened to it, they could travel back to that time in their lives, because they listened to it other times, but that was when they really listened to it, was that one point in time when they played it like repeatedly after it first came out. So it would be tied to that, so he could revisit that. Create a memory dish. Make a special dinner or breakfast or brunch, so when you dine on it, you can remember that specific time. If it's one of your kids, like the play, their Christmas play or something, and you want to remember their Christmas play, maybe make a special dinner afterwards to try to lock that in. Take a memory lane walking tour. I do this in Pennsylvania. My aunt lives by a train yard, or she lived, R.I.P. And she lived at the top of a hill. It's very hilly in Pennsylvania. And we would walk down the old road all the way down the hill, and we'd go to this candy store which turned into a pizza shop. And I'm not sure what it is now. But we'd always get a piece of candy there. And when it turned into a pizza shop, I think we ended up getting some pizza. And then we'd continue walking to the river. I loved it. I wanted to take my kids, and it's, something I'll always remember no matter what. Make and celebrate more milestones. If you accomplish something, celebrate it and make more of those. Make more time to celebrate yourself and others. Do something that scares you. Obviously, you're going to remember if you go bungee jumping. Do the 10 years time test. Choose a path that you're going to remember in 10 years. So, with the bungee jumping thing, if you go to, XYZ, and you have two options of like, oh yeah, we could chill and just go get ice cream, or we could just go bungee jumping off of that fucking bridge. What are you going to remember in 10 years? Are you going to remember getting that ice cream? Maybe, I guess, if it's really good ice cream. Or are you going to remember bungee jumping off the fucking bridge? Probably bungee jumping. End something on a high note. And save the best for last. I do that with my food. I've always done that with my food for some reason. I don't think it really correlates with this, but it's what it makes me think of. But save the best for last. Consider taking the long route. Make the journey part of the experience when you're on like a road trip or something, or when you're building up to something. Collect objects that are a manifestation of your stories. I used to go into places with my friends, and I would sometimes get mementos from said places, and I still have them. So every time I look at them, one is a bar of soap, which I think about all the time throwing away, and it ends up in just miscellaneous parts of the house. Like, I'm not even sure where in the house it is right now. But it's, every time I look at that bar of soap, it takes me back to that trip in Pennsylvania with my friends when we would go in certain places. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. So yeah, collect objects so that when you look at them, it takes you back to that. If you're gonna have something in your house, you might as well have a good memory attached to it. So, all right. And then he lists the 50 most common childhood memories. I am going to list a few. Some of them I feel like are probably very Danish because I'd never heard of them in my entire life. I am not going to speak of those ones here, but I will give some that stood out to me. So some of them were family holidays, playing hide and seek, collecting shells on the beach. We'd go to Michigan every year. I remember that specifically. Sports days. My kiddo plays soccer, and I remember, his championships and some of the games in between. Playground games. climbing trees, egg and spoon races. I've never personally done that, but I really want to. Getting ice cream from the ice cream truck. School field trips. The Tooth Fairy visiting. Back to school shopping. Sleepovers with friends. Camping. And playing games on long car rides. Those are some of the most common childhood memories. Keeping that in mind, why don't you make those memories stand out if you have kids? That's what I want to do. Rename places with memories. For me, I don't really remember streets or cities or anything of that sort, like the names of them really very well. So I already kind of do that myself. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But it's a fun little thing. Be like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to blah, blah, blah. And you know where it's at, but it's not really it. And if you were to tell somebody else, they'd be like, what? See, like, you don't even know what I'm saying right now. Soundtracks make a soundtrack for a certain journey. And last but not least, he goes through the months of the year and makes each month a theme. So you make, like you're planning out a very memorable year. You don't always have to plan ahead. Sometimes it's fun not to do that. But if you want something specific to stick in your brain, sometimes it's okay to plan. All right. Well, that is The Art of Making Memories. I give this book a 4 out of 5. Can't remember why. I think there was some parts that I felt like repeated a little bit. But overall, it was a great book. I loved it. I really enjoy his books. He's also the CEO of the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen. So I really recommend these books if you are a sad girl or sad boy or sad they, whatever kind of sad you are. Because maybe it'll bring a little bit of happiness to you. All right. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your month, rest of your life. Sending you love and light.